Hello friends, welcome back to another session of Core Java tutorials. Today we will see separators in Java. So what is meant by a separator? Separator is a token that has syntactic meaning to the compiler, but exact significance depends on the context. Meaning that compiler knows like what is the meaning of curly bracket, parenthesis, square bracket. So it already know that. And also based on the position where you give inside the code, the compiler will be knowing its meaning. So separators are that. Now we can group separators into two groups. The first one is the first group should be used only as pairs. Like if you are opening a curly bracket, then there should be an associated close bracket for that. So the curl brackets, parentheses, square brackets and angular brackets, all these brackets should be used in pairs. The second group is punctuators. Punctuators are like period. So I have put a dot over there. Dot means period. Then there is a comma. Then there is semicolon. Then there is colon. And there is some three dots, which means that variable length arguments. Okay, so these are some of the punctuators. So we'll see the purpose of each and every separator and how to use it in the program. Okay, so these kind of braces are called as flower brackets, or they are called as curly braces, or simply they are called as braces. You can simply call them as braces, and they are used to define blocks and scope of code. So when you define try and catch block, then you need an open bracket and close bracket. And as I said, like remember that they have to be used in pairs. If you use open bracket and forget the closing bracket, then your compiler will catch it and it will throw you some compilation failure will occur. So you always have to remember that they have to be used in pairs. And also for the finally block, then you can write finally and then an open bracket and a close bracket. You can simply put finally an open bracket, write the code and then put a closing bracket. This is called as block, finally block. And if you want to declare a static block, then put a static keyword here, so it will become static block. Okay, so this is how you declare a block. Block means that it should have an open brace and then a closing brace. And remember that this looks like this. Okay, so and now the curl braces or the braces can also be used to define classes, methods. Okay, so so see here, this is the class definition, and the class definition starts from here and the scope ends over here. So this entire thing is the class test. Okay, so this has started over here and the scope has ended over here. Now coming to this is a method. So this method name is add and this is written in void, and this method definition has started from here and it has ended over here. So the scope of this method is from this open braces and till this closing braces. Okay, and the other use of this braces is to initialize the arrays. Okay, to initialize arrays we will be using this braces. Okay, so I am saying int a and then I am initializing it, and the initialized values are put in between this open brace and then the closing brace, separated by commas. So remember what I said in separators. I said like the significance is depending upon the context. So here based on the context, your compiler will be deciding whether this is acting like initialization or this is the scope, or the like that your compiler will be able to distinguish. Okay, so based on the position of the separator, your compiler will be able to distinguish the meaning of it. Okay, so we'll see parentheses now. The next separator is parentheses. Okay, so it is also called as round braces. The use of this parentheses is to hold list of parameters in method definition. So I gave you an example over here. So you can just take a look at this example. So I said this is the method name and these are the parameters, and these parameters are held inside this braces. Okay, so these are called as parentheses or round braces. So the purpose of this parenthesis, one of the purposes of this parenthesis is to hold the parameters in method definition. Okay, so the second purpose of the parenthesis is they are used in control statements. Okay, so like in if, okay, so you can write your condition inside this parenthesis, and for switch also you can pass the argument inside this switch, and also for while your condition can be mentioned inside this parenthesis, and for loop for loop also. Okay, so the purpose of this is like we can use parenthesis in control statements. Okay, so another purpose is like for typecasting. Okay, so I have given a piece of code here. Like I said, byte x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 20 and z. All these three variables are of byte type. So now I said z is equal to x plus y. Now what happens is, by default, if you see my previous videos, I mentioned that by default integral value is of integer type. So x plus y will be calculated, so which is 10 plus 20, that is 30, and 30 will be of integer type. If you are not typecasting, you will get an error. Okay, so keeping that aside, now the purpose of this parenthesis is that we can use it for typecasting. So I have converted this 30 integer type into this byte type. So for doing that conversion, I have used byte over here, which is put in parenthesis. So another purpose of parenthesis is for typecasting. And another use of parenthesis is for expression grouping. Okay, so say you are having certain expressions in your program. So say I am having an expression which is x is equal to a into b plus c. Now what happens is, say I am not having this parenthesis. So what happens is, it follows the operator precedence rules. So according to the operator precedence rules, the highest operator will execute first. So a into b will execute because star is having more precedence than plus. So a into b will happen first, and then the result will be added to c. So say you don't want a into b to happen first, you want b plus c to happen first. So in that cases, you can actually give higher precedence to plus by putting it in parenthesis. Okay, so for doing this also you will be using parenthesis. So parentheses are used for holding the list of parameters in method definition. They are used in control statements. They are used for typecasting, and also they are used for expression grouping. So we'll see square brackets now. Next separator is square bracket. Okay, so it is used for array declaration like this. So if you want to specify the size of the array, okay, so that can be put in this square brackets. So this is one use of square bracket. And the second use is that to access array elements. Okay, to access array index. Okay, so you can access array elements through the access index numbers. So that index number can be specified in between these square brackets. So this is the purpose of the square bracket. And the last one is angle bracket. Okay, so this is how the angle bracket look. And angle brackets are used in generics, okay, to specify the parameter type. Okay, so this is how the parameter is mentioned inside the angle brackets. And these are the separators. All the separators like curly brackets, then parentheses, square brackets, angle brackets, all these should be used in pairs. Now we'll see punctuators. Okay, so the punctuators are period. The first one is period. So we'll see what is period used for. Okay, so it is also called as dot. Okay, so you can also say it as dot. So this is used to separate the package names from sub-package name and class name. So we'll be using this statement. If you want to use date class inside your program, you have to import this date from the package. This is the main package, wherein there is a sub-package called util, and inside sub-package util there is the date class. So this is the class, and this is the subclass, sub-package, and this is the main package. So if you want to use date inside your program, you have to import it in this manner. So this dot or this period is used to separate the sub-packages from the package and the class from the sub-package. So this is the first use of the period separator. And the next one is, it is used to separate methods from its objects and variables from its objects. So say I have an object which is obj. Okay, so obj dot add. So this is the object and this is the method name. So to separate these two things we are using period here. And then this is the variable and this is the object. To separate them again we are using this dot here. And the commonly seen statement is system.out.println, which is used to print certain statements onto the console. Okay, so if you just try to understand this, now the system is the class name and out is the object, okay, of this system class, and then println is the method. So to separate these three things we are using the period over here. Okay, so that is the purpose of the period separator, and the next one is comma separator. So what is comma separator used for? Wherein you will be using this in your program. So you will be using it to separate the parameters list inside the method. So this is the method and there are two parameters inside the method, which is int x and int y, and you are using comma to separate these parameters inside the method. So this is one purpose of comma, and the next one is you are separating the variables, consecutive variables of same type. Okay, so these three variables are of type integer only. So when you are having variables, consecutive variables of the same type, then you will be separating them like this. Okay, so this is another use of comma. Next is semicolon. Okay, semicolon is, if you are familiar with C and C++, then you know that semicolon is called as statement terminator. So whatever statement you write, there should be a semicolon at the end. Remember that for the closing curly bracket, there won't be a semicolon. Okay, so when you are closing the class or when you are closing the method, there won't be any semicolon. But for every other statement, there will be a semicolon. And where else you will be using semicolon? You will be using it inside your for loop to separate the constructs inside the for separating initialization from the condition and from the increment and decrement. You will be using a semicolon. Okay, right. And the next separator is colon. Colon is used for the label statements. So I have written a simple code over here. So this is what is called as a label. So I created a label and the name of the label is first. Okay, so say I am having two nested loops over here. This is the outer for loop and this is the inner for loop. And inside the inner for loop, so this is the scope of the inner for loop, and inside the inner for loop I have written a break. Now what will happen if this break executes? If this break executes, only the inner for loop will break and the control will come to the outer for loop. Say in some situations in your code, you don't want even the outer for loop to execute. In that cases, you can simply say break first, because this is the label that is used to represent the outer for loop. So when I say break first, now what happens is it will break the outer for loop and control will come outside this particular loops. Okay, so this is the use of the label separator. And the next one is called as, there are three dots, okay, so which are put horizontally. So here, so this is called as variable length argument list. Okay, so where you will be using this? Herein I have written two statements. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, so two method definitions are written here. This is test and I am saying string, and with some variable length argument list is there. So this is one way of representing this. Another way of representing is I can just use this. Both are same. Okay, so both are used to represent variable length argument list. You can use this to represent that. Okay, so these are all the separators, my friends. Hope this video is helpful to you. Keep watching my upcoming videos for core Java topics. Stay home, stay safe, happy learning. Bye.